What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Roddy's Rides. I'm your host, Roddy. Today, before we were about to start cranking, we actually ran into a little errand that we need to run. And my buddy Cole, he's selling his OEM wheels for his GLI, not GTI. GLI. And right after that, we'll be right back and we'll get into today's video. So before I show you guys what parts I actually ended up picking up for this car, I've had these parts for, it's like 3 months now, something like that. But either way, I'm losing my living room decorations and I've been hiding them in all the videos, and I'm finally happy to show you guys. But first of all, before I get into that, I want to give a huge shout out to Ghost 3.7. He ended up hitting me up on YouTube and in the comments for some of the Supercharger parts, and he gave me a great deal that I couldn't pass up on. And very next weekend I drove up to his place and I picked up all the parts, so huge shout out to him. Also, if you guys do have used parts for a 3.7 Mustang and you're trying to get rid of them, hit me up. I might pick them up, so just let me know. And now let's jump into some B-roll. Before we start installing this intercooler, we're going to have to take off the whole front bumper anyways, and I think I'm going to start off with mounting the intercooler first. Luckily, since the kit has already been installed, all the hoses have been cut to length, so really all the hard work's really been done. We just got to mount it and then just plug in the old setup. So first we're going to start off with taking off my front bumper, and then we'll probably go up to the top mount intercooler. So let's get cranking. Installing this kit, VMP actually made a video that is very in-depth and shows how to install this, because this is their product. So I will be following along their video, and that's how I'll be installing this. So let's jump into it. Okay, so it kind of looks like a bomb went off over here, but I was going through some interesting things. So this is obviously a V6 and it's not a GT500 application, so there's a couple little things I ran into. So first off, there's a little scoop right here that goes into the stock 3.7 cold air intake box. There's these little flaps on the side, and so the proper way is you could take all this out, then you'd have to take this out. They get all the way down to the underneath part where you can just actually fit the intercooler and do all that. But I realized like the snout down here where this hose come out, and also right up here the flaps are in the way, so I ended up just taking some aluminum or steel cutters, thin metal cutters I have to say, shears, I don't know what the name is, excuse me, but I ended up using those just to trim the plastic. So now this is solid, like it's not going anywhere. So moving on to the next step, which I believe I'm going to do, is I'm going to mount the spare coolant tank for the air to water intercooler. So I didn't film it just because it ended up being one bolt. Next thing I'm going to do is underneath the driver's side or the passenger side headlight, there are 2 bolts here and somewhere over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the pump relay fuse, or well, not the fuse, but the whole wiring harness to there and ground it. And then I'm going to run it up underneath the fuse box tray, and then that should be fully hooked in. So the pump should be good to go. So I'm actually going to take our power wire, which I believe are these two, and then this ground. I'm going to pass these underneath the headlight, and I'll probably get a connection right up here where there's already ground. And then on the power, I'm going to do it on the bottom of the fuse box, and that should be running our pump system. So I'm going to knock that out real quick. We are going to take the bolts off the rear crash or the front crash bar, which are inside here, which are going to be a pain, and I gotta figure that out. But I believe they are size 15. I'm going to pop these off, and then I'm going to be installing my water pump back here. So that's the next step. So I just noticed the water pump right where the hose is supposed to go is poking right into these horns. So I'm gonna untick off the horn and probably either try to remount it back there or up here. I'm gonna see what fits better. So I actually ended up just using the stock location of the horn. I just turned it and put a bolt through it, and I'm gonna call it a day. So I might be hung it backwards, but I don't know, who knows. Okay, so pretty much what I figured out was I took off my sub wire, and I'm just gonna run it straight to the battery, and don't worry, I have a little fuse thing that protects it. And then so now I'm just gonna run the power line for the fans and the pump straight up to the fuse box, and I have it grounded already. And then underneath there are two plugs that plug into the fans on the bottom, and I'm gonna plug in all those, and I think I'm gonna call it a night and finish this up tomorrow. So it's the very next day. A little recap of what we did yesterday. We mounted the second reservoir. We ran the wiring harness for the pump and the air to water intercooler that mounted down here. We have the front intercooler mounted up, and we also mounted the water pump. So now I'm going to start with getting underneath, plugging in all the connections, and making sure that the wiring harness is tight and up and out of the way of any debris or anything out on the road, so it doesn't get yanked or pulled on. So I'm just going to finalize up the wires a little bit, and then I think we're going to jump straight into the supercharger next. So stay tuned. Alright, so we've taken off the belt, and then I've also disconnected all the various hoses. And next part we're going to start doing is we're going to slowly start loosening up all the way around the supercharger and slowly taking off the supercharger so we can be adding the new top intercooler. So let's keep cranking. So we ran into a couple issues. So putting on the new plate, well, first I took out the intercooler on the inside of the intercooler housing, I'll say, the upper intercooler housing. When I was looking at it, right now it hits this back tray and also this little lip of metal that we have sticking up. So the choices that I have is, do I trim the metal, and then also a little spot on the firewall, do I need to give it some little persuasion, some love taps to make sure that this intercooler will fit. But I'm kind of debating on which path I'm going to go with. I'm probably going to have to end up doing both of them. So I'm just going to take my time and slowly keep trimming away until it fits. I was not expecting to have to do this, but it kind of makes sense now just looking at it all said and be, and this is what it's going to look like. But it will be bolted down and centered, of course, but one step at a time. We're actually calling it an evening tonight. The intercooler, the plates, and the top mount intercooler section actually interfered with the firewall, so we beat it in a little bit with the hammer, and now the supercharger just needs to go back a little bit, so we got to trim the axis, overhang, and the cowl for the windshield down a little bit, and then the supercharger should fit. But you will have to see that in next week's video, so if you liked it, go drop a like. If you haven't subscribed already, go make the red button to a gray button. Also, one thing I forgot to mention to y'all, I accidentally over-tightened the cold air intake, so now it's warped down here. But Auto Mafia was already suggesting to buy a new one of these because of my sound tube. It was unregulated airflow into the motor, causing it not accurate readings. So I was already planning on buying a new one of these, so once that comes in the mail, we'll get it all bolted up, and the supercharged and intercooled should be officially done. So I'm excited for this build and hope to see you guys back.